Or, esteemed colleagues from the Foreign Service Institute, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the 13th Ambassadors Lecture Series, an initiative of the Foreign Service Institute that brings together heads of diplomatic missions in Manila to share their insights, experiences, and advocacies. This event serves as a platform to deepen our understanding and foster collaboration, guiding us toward shared goals of peace, cooperation, and sustainable economic development. My name is Christina Bernadette Mojica, and I will be your MC for today's event. To officially open today's program, it is my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker. Her Excellency HKU PSM is the Ambassador of Australia to the Philippines and a distinguished senior career officer with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, also known as DFAT. Ambassador Yu brings with her a wealth of experience, having held significant roles across key Australian government agencies, including the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, the Treasury, and the Australian Taxation Office. Before her current posting, Ambassador Yu served as Deputy Head of Mission and Minister at the Australian Embassy in Japan. From March 2018 to October 2019, she was First Assistant Secretary of the DFAT's Middle East and Africa Division in Canberra. Over her impressive career, she has also served as Minister Counselor for Economics at the Australian Embassy in Japan during her time at the Treasury, and was seconded to the Korean government to support its G20 presidency in 2010, a work for which she was awarded the Public Service Medal, or PSM. Ambassador Yu holds a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Western Australia, a graduate diploma in economics with distinction from the Australian National University, and a Master of Taxation from the University of New South Wales. She is married to Fergus Murphy, and together they have 4 sons. To share with us her insights this morning on Philippine-Australia's strategic partnership, more important than ever, please join me in warmly welcoming the Ambassador of Australia to the Philippines, Her Excellency HKU.
Oh, there's a button. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. I would like to thank the Foreign Services Institute, led by Director General Attorney Fernandez, for this very kind invitation. And of course, acknowledge our wonderful colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps for being here, and many familiar and new faces from the Philippine government. It is really indeed a great honor for all of you turning up to hear my remarks today. You know, just as the saying goes, time flies when you're having fun. It's quite unbelievable for me that I have already been the Australian Ambassador to the Philippines for almost 3 years, and that I only have less than 2 months, I was counting today, less than 2 months left in my posting in this beautiful country, the Philippines. So this lecture comes at a perfect time for me to perhaps share with all of you what Australia and the Philippines have been able to achieve together over the last 3 years that I have been here. But before I launch straight into it, I actually have a 5-minute trailer for you to share with you what I'd actually like to share in a bit more detail through the next 30 minutes or so. So please look at the screen. For those of you who attended the Australian National Day in January, this will be familiar to you. But those who are not there, please enjoy. In this world where there is a lot of big challenges facing us, and we live in a complex and challenging environment, we need our friends and partners more than ever.
The Philippines and Australia share a long history of cooperation and an even longer history of friendship.
We're talking about 8 decades of bilateral relations between the Philippines and Australia.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is set to visit the Philippines. It's the first visit by an Australian Prime Minister to the Philippines in 20 years.
Australia is honoured to count Philippines as a close friend, and from today, a strategic partner.
What can we expect from this? What does this mean for both countries? So that actually shows the level of commitment that Australian government is providing to the Philippines for this very important relationship.
If the Calabanians come, this is how Australia will come to help defend the Philippines.
We will be carrying out probably the biggest and most complex and certainly first amphibious exercise that we have engaged in with the Philippines.
This defense cooperation goes back many, many decades, and I am certain that it will go on for many more years.
Nasa Australia na ang FA-50 fighter jet ng Philippine Air Force na lalahok sa Pitch Black Exercises 2024.
Nakasaysayan po yan dahil unang pagkakataong nagpadala ang bansa ng fighter jets sa multilateral exercises.
And what better soil than Australia, right? As your true strategic partner and friend. So thank you.
We thank Australia for its consistent and continuing support in the South China Sea.
Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong says the Philippine Coast Guard will get a major boost in training and equipment.
The Philippines and Australia ink a deal aimed at strengthening both nations' existing civil and defense maritime commitments.
The two countries agreed to enhance maritime cooperation and safeguard regional seas.
And as the Australian ambassador to the Philippines, I can tell you this. You can count on Australia.
What is the state of the country's trade relations with Australia?
The Philippine leader led a business forum highlighting the deepening economic ties between Manila and Canberra.
I cannot overstate the importance of this investment. Your Excellency, Ambassador, you hit the nail on the head there. The entire team behind the St. Bigigo factory, thank you for taking this leap of faith with us.
How about the good stuff from the Philippines to present to Australia?
But going the other direction, Ayala's ASEAN is Australia's biggest foreign investor into renewable energy. This is actually about Australian government saying we want two-way trade and investment to increase.
Being Australian businesses are in the Philippines
to explore investment and expansion opportunities.
We need to do more, and certainly Australia wants to bring more to the table when it comes to the economic relationship.
Inilatag ng Australia ang 5 taong plano para makatulong sa pagunlad ng Pilipinas.
This is actually a partnership plan that we developed with the Philippines. Australia's development program for the Philippines is our 5th largest, and the development fund has been going up.
When I grow up, I want to be a dentist because I want to help everyone.
Everything we do should also have gender lens and inclusion lens, all underpinned by strengthening vibrant people-to-people links that we're seeing between our two countries.
Today I fly to Melbourne to attend the special summit to commemorate the 50 years of ASEAN-Australia relations at the invitation of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
Philippine President Marcos Jr. commits to maximize Manila's strategic partnership with Canberra.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the Republic of the Philippines.
This is an historic occasion for both our democracies.
This is why our strategic partnership has grown more important than ever.
Australia and the Philippines are in the same boat, and we share a vision for our destination: a peaceful, secure, stable, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. That's the spirit of Filipino, Bayanihan, and Australian mateship. We work together, and we care for each other.
On behalf of the Filipino people, I thank you, Australia, for standing with the Republic of the Philippines.
You'll all agree with me, my 3 years in the Philippines has been a very busy one, very busy one. As that video so aptly captured, our bilateral relationship between Australia and the Philippines has really done a major uplift over the last 3 years. It is absolutely true that our relationship is deep and long-standing. In fact, we are about to celebrate our 80th diplomatic relations next year in 2026. So that's a very, very long time to be friends and partners. But over the last 3 years, there were a number of factors, the complex world and challenges that we face, underpinned by shared values and our ambition for peaceful, prosperous, and stable region, has brought the Philippines and Australia even closer together. And that has meant that we have really stepped up on all our cooperation on all fronts. There is so much that we do together that it is actually quite difficult for me to start reeling off the things that we have achieved together. So what I'd like to do is actually divide them into 4 main categories: defense and security cooperation, development cooperation, trade and investment cooperation, and of course, finally, the ever-important element of any bilateral relationship, the people-to-people links. So please allow me to go into a little bit of detail to give you a great overview of what this relationship has been all about and what it's going to be all about as we head into this such an uncertain and volatile future together. Starting with defense and security, our military cooperation has been in place for decades. And in fact, until recently, Australia is the only other country other than US that actually has had a visiting forces agreement with the Philippines. So we're up there when it comes to a bilateral cooperation with defense. But even this very deep relationship has been evolving over the last 3 years. We are seeing more and more joint exercises with many firsts. So in fact, we have over 15 joint exercises annually. And throughout my time here, we've seen first amphibious exercise through Exercise Alon, looking at maritime security. We've had our first defense ministers meeting, first one ever, in November last year. And we have invited the Philippine Air Force to exercise with us through a multinational exercise Pitch Black that is held in Australia. Did you know that that was the first time a Philippine Air Force asset had been taken overseas to participate in an exercise such as that? So we're achieving some major achievements there. And of course, as we delve into this deeper relationship through defense-to-defense cooperation, we're looking at change of challenges for the Philippines as well. One from counterterrorism to one around maritime security. So the exercises are getting more complex, and we're looking at more of a teamwork rather than boosting individuals' capabilities through military cooperation. But it doesn't just stop with defense-to-defense cooperation. We're doing enormous amount of work through civil maritime security cooperation as well. And I'm delighted to see my dear friends from PCG in the audience, because the work we have been doing with them has been really second to none. For the first time during my time here, we now have an Australian Border Force, a liaison officer, embedded in the embassy so they can work closely with PCG on all things to do with maritime security. And on top of that, we have been running Law of the Sea courses where we have trained more than 700 Philippine officials from 28 different agencies. The understanding of the law is having a major impact on how the Philippines is addressing issues within the UNCLOS. In addition, we are all ears when it comes to our partners, and we've been working closely with the PCG to find out from them what it is that they really need from us, what equipment that they really need from us, and we've been helping them fill those gaps, whether it's water purifying system or radio system or drones that I have recently gifted. These are helping the PCG really advance their capability around maritime domain awareness. So we're very happy about our partnership with PCG. There's many, many more, but let me now turn to transnational crimes, including the horrific crimes that we see online around children's sexual abuse and exploitation. Once again, this is an area Australian government has been working very hard through our Australian Federal Police with PICAC in the Philippines to really target those perpetrators and save those poor souls. In fact, through PICAC's work, they have rescued 810 children, victims, of which 231 children were as a result of Australia's direct sharing of information. And they've charged 175 perpetrators, of which 71 were as a result of Australia's assistance. It's sad that we have to talk about this, but it's also important that we continue to talk about it so we stop the harm that's been done to our children, the future of our countries. Another area we do a lot of work in for security is in airport and border security. We actually have a counsellor that's responsible for working with your airports to ensure appropriate security. And we also have Home Affairs colleagues that have been active in building your capability in relation to border security. So much so that recently, Australia, in partnership with the UN Office of Counter-Terrorism, helped the Bureau of Immigration to launch your own advanced passenger information system. What that means is that your bureau will now have information about passengers coming inwards, even well before they jump on that plane, enabling you to use that intelligence to protect your borders appropriately. It was only launched in March, and I understand already they're seeing real results. But there are new areas that are emerging, new exciting areas, because true partnership, true friends, we evolve together with our environment. And as we continue to work in these very important sectors, we've recognized the importance of cybersecurity. And I'm so excited to share with you today that as a result of that, we are now also working in this very important area, cybersecurity, where the Australian government is helping the PCG, PNP, and various other departments to boost the resilience of their cyber system. We have recently done an enormous amount of work with PCG and PNP, and we are also about to do desktop exercises around energy sector and transport sector. My apologies. So these real tangible practical things are happening as we speak to ensure that Australia and the Philippines can be more cyber resilient in this ever-changing, evolving environment. So now let me go to development. So that was just security, defense and security. Let me now share with you development. This is another area where Australia has been with the Philippines for more than 50 years. In fact, Australia's bilateral ODA funding for the Philippines, just ODA alone, is worth 3.3 billion pesos per year. It is one of our biggest aid programs in the world. And that's before we count regional programs and non-ODA programs. To ensure we get the most out of this, because let's face it, when you're using taxpayers' money, you have responsibility, great responsibility to ensure you get the biggest bang for your buck. The Australian government co-wrote, co-designed a development partnership plan with the Philippines. Our development partnership plan was launched in October 2024, and its purpose is to provide a clear framework of areas where Australia can really value add in terms of Philippines' development objectives. So this development partnership plan will guide what we do here because it's been signed off by the Philippine government. We consulted more than 80 stakeholders to develop this plan. So I'm really proud of that. And under that guidance, Australian government currently has these following multi-year programs under the development agenda. We have a 2.4 billion peso peace and security program in Mindanao. We also have 1.5 billion peso worth program on social protection, gender equality, and inclusion agenda. This one involves us working closely with DSWD to ensure the real vulnerable, those really vulnerable in the Philippine society are better looked after. We also have a 1.04 billion peso disaster response and management program, as well as a 731 million peso fair justice program, where we are focusing on not only reforms to the justice system, but important issues such as human rights. And finally, we have an organisation called Australia's Centre for International Agricultural Research, who is just in 1 year spending 190 million pesos on 21 different projects to help the Philippines become more productive in your agricultural and aquacultural sector. This is like real work. Now these, you might think they're just numbers, what do they really mean? But let me actually share with you two specific examples out of this program that's actually really turning the dial on how things are done in the Philippines. First project that I want to share with you is what we call a soil strategy. When Australian Prime Minister came to the Philippines, one of two MOUs he signed with President Marcos was on national soil health strategy. Since then, the Australian government has been working closely with 4 different provinces to bring soil science into agriculture, to test the soil in those provinces, to work out what fertilizer, in what portion, would actually produce best results, and what type of crops would produce the best yield with least amount of environmental damage. This has really been amazingly well embraced, so much so that in Agusan del Sur, the local government units, along with that region representative, House of Representatives, have decided to take it on themselves to build their own soil science laboratory to Australia standards. And the President and I had the absolute honour of being present for the soil turning of that project, and I will be going back very soon to actually open the completed soil science laboratory. And I remember when we were there, a number of months ago, I promised President Marcos that not only will we provide the know-how, but that we would train their future soil scientists so that these scientists can come back armed with that knowledge from Australia and work in these laboratories. And I've kept my promise. We actually have a number of Filipinos who are currently undertaking masters in soil science in Australia as we speak. So that's a really great example of how something as fundamental as that is now changing the lives of just ordinary farmers out there. I was so touched to hear a story that one particular farmer who used this technique and used our knowledge about intercropping and crop variety said to one of our consultants, "See that shack over there? The all falling apart wooden shack? That used to be my house. See that 2-story concrete building over there? That is now my house. I've been able to triple my profits, reduce my costs, thereby being able to provide better life for my family." This was what a farmer said in Agusan del Sur. This is what real partnership, real collaboration is all about. Another project I wanted to share with you quickly is one around forensics. You can tell straight away this is something that the Philippines is in very much need of. Whether it's to ensure fair justice system, which is based on real science and evidence, or whether it's to actually bring about your experts at times of natural disasters for victim identification, or whether it's to ensure you've got the right knowledge and technique when you're dealing with vulnerable children and women who have been subject to sexual violence, or whether it's just simply to have your public health policies better informed. You can see why having a National Forensic Institute that is both operational and independent would be to the great benefit of the Philippines. The Philippine government, by the way, agrees with this, and Executive Secretary Bersamin personally made a pledge on this at the last Human Rights Council meeting. So, armed with Australia's expertise, I went to see him, and our experts, I went to see him. And through that conversation, Australian government has been able to assist the Philippine government to go through the pathway of establishing your own National Forensic Institute. Of course, one of the most important things for having such an institute is to ensure you've got enough experts. And did you know that as of now, you only have 2 forensic pathologists in your country? As amazing as they are, and trust me, they really are, I think you're going to need a bit more than that. To help with that, the Australian government is actually providing assistance to establish a joint degree on forensic medicine between our Monash University and UP Manila. That joint master's degree on forensic medicine, we hope, will commence in the middle of this year. And that will mean you will have forensic medical experts that are trained to Australian international standards. We plan to bring our own forensic doctors, fly them in, so that they can actually carry out prac with students going through this course. And once again, to assist with this whole process, the Australian government is providing 4 scholarships per year for some bright Filipino medical student to take on this fantastic course in years to come. So these are just 2 very small examples that I wanted to share with you to show you that these are not just numbers, these are not just headlines, that under this framework, under these numbers, there are so many fantastic work that's really turning the dial on the Philippines' development and growth. But that's not it. That's not the end. We've got more to come. And I wanted to share with you some exciting programs that we'll be launching very soon and why they are so important. One such program is one called Equipped in Education. And this 1.5 billion peso program will target the senior high school students so that when they finish high school, they come out job ready. The work that's been done already to pave the way for this program is so exciting. We have had the Department of Education Secretary Angara and TESDA's Secretary Benitez, and of course CHED's Chairman De Virga, go and visit Australia recently. Together, they're working out how to develop this completely connected education pathway for all. So that not only can we have Year 12 students that can go straight into a job because they're already qualified, but they're prepared and very well prepared for a further university degree, or someone going into the workforce wanting to upskill, coming back into the vocational education, and then perhaps to further higher education. These are all possible scenarios that we need to develop for all Filipino students. And Australia wants to play a major role in that. We are bringing industry engagement to ensure whatever skills we're providing to the students, they are looking to the future. They are working on those skills that are in demand by the industry. So really exciting piece of work that will be hopefully launched very soon. Another area we're working on is a program called Progress, a 1.7 billion peso program. And for the first time, we are starting an economic growth development program. Why? Because economic power equals strategic power. And we know that the best way Australia can help the Philippines is to ensure you have good, healthy, and sustainable economic growth. So through this program, we'll be working with the likes of Department of Finance, ATA, NEDA, and even, of course, Secretary Go under his leadership to ensure we help the Philippines achieve good economic reforms, ease business, doing business, further ease doing business, and start up that private sector financial and economic entrepreneurship. So that's our vision for our program Progress, which will also be launched soon. In addition, we will be also looking at climate resilience as a separate program, because we know that in this world, it would be remiss of any partner if we didn't seriously think about how we can help the Philippines to be more climate resilient. So these are some exciting things coming our way. Going to our third category of trade and investment. Currently, as we stand, the two-way trade and investment between Australia and the Philippines, I have to be honest with you, it can be much better. Around 380 billion pesos per year for trade and 320 billion pesos per year for investment. Recognizing that this is an area where we can do better, the Australian government launched its Invested Southeast Asia Economic Strategy to 2040 in September 2023. Since then, we have been working so hard to achieve real results in the two-way trade and investment between our two countries. In just over a year, let me quickly run through for you. The Australian government facilitated 3 Australian business missions to the Philippines, namely a transnational education mission, a mission led by a CEO of Macquarie Group with all C-suite leaders, and a technology and cybersecurity mission. And we will be organizing a mining mission in November this year. The other way, we also facilitated 2 Philippine business missions to Australia, namely the first ever higher education delegation to Australia, made up of 12 Philippine education institutions in October 2024, and a mining delegation only 2 weeks ago to Australia, made up of 25 delegates from 13 companies. There will actually be an op-ed on this on Friday, so watch the space. To really wake up Australian companies to the amazing opportunities available in the Philippines, we have also developed our own Philippine business prospectus. For those of you who are interested, it's available online, so please look it up. And what it's trying to do is educate Australian companies where the opportunities are, what the condition is like here, and how the Philippines is truly open for business. So we've had some very, very good responses to that. And in addition, the Australian government, with the launch of the strategy, established what's called an investment deal teams. Manila has a deal team embedded in my embassy. And this team's job is to identify prospective projects in the Philippines and match them to appropriate Australian companies, and bring to bear any Australian government measures or assistance that could help these projects to get over the line. This investment deal team has been working so hard that during this very short period, they have identified 112 potential projects in the Philippines, and of which 26 have already progressed to next stage for further assessment. I wanted to also share with you that the Australian government not only put strategies in place, but they put money where their mouth is. To couple this strategy, the government also announced a $1.2 billion, that's Australian, not peso, financing facility for Southeast Asia. And what that means is that when there are good projects, strategic projects here, Australian government can now use their money as equity, as concessional loan, as even a guarantee to to reduce risks. So this is the kind of exciting stuff that we are doing in the trade and investment space. And all of this is actually now leading to real outcomes on the ground. And let's face it, that's what this is all about, and that's when you can get very excited. And we're seeing Australian companies investing billions of pesos into the Philippines. One such example you saw in a video, an Australian company just, only less than a year ago, opened up a factory in Clark to manufacture your first ever lithium-ion batteries. And that's what the President was opening and saying, you know, you hit the nail on the head, Ambassador Yu, right? That's what that investment was about. They are already in production, and this company sent B Gigafactory. Their intention was to build, manufacture these batteries for exports. But demand from within had been so big, they're going to open up another factory soon, right, to actually service the Philippines' demand. But the current factory, the batteries they build will be sent to Australia. Australia will be importing them, and also to nearby countries as well. So these are really exciting things that are happening on the ground. And we have billions and billions of pesos worth of investments like that close to being announced. And even in the mining sector, we are seeing an Australian company subsidiary winning the first ever mining license since your government lifted the mining moratorium. And that is well underway, with even Malika being part of this project. So really exciting things all around. And then that takes me finally to our people-to-people links, because all the exciting things that I've been able to share with you, it's only possible because we have such strong and enduring people-to-people links between our two countries. We have more than 400,000 Filipino heritage people calling Australia home as we speak. Filipino diaspora is Australia's 5th largest, and they contribute enormously to Australia's society and economy. And in addition to those people, we have around 40,000 Filipinos studying in Australia as we speak. Australia is Filipinos' #1 study destination. And when these people come back, boy, are they great Australian ambassadors to the Philippines. They carry with them a part of Australia. And with the education they've gained from Australia, they come back absolutely determined to make a difference to the Philippines. I'm sure there are a few of you in the room right now, Australian alumni members. And we, in particular, have very dynamic and active community. And it's always such a pleasure as an Australian ambassador to liaise with them. Because you know what? I can talk to them about any aspect of our bilateral relationship, and they're there to support it. And it doesn't get better than that, to have that kind of support. We also have around 250 major Australian companies employing 44,000 Filipinos, and growing, by the way. And the two-way movement of our people has really just blown up. And this is really well supported by my fantastic visa processing staff at the embassy, but also airlines coming to play. Did you know we have almost 40 direct flights per week between Australia and the Philippines? And this number is growing. Nothing makes me happier than hearing about new routes being opened between our two countries. So this is what the Philippine-Australia relationship is all about. And I am so proud, as the Australian ambassador to the Philippines, to have been able to achieve what we have achieved together between our two beautiful countries over the last 3 years. But of course, I wish we can say, yep, it's done, and we're all good now, we can go home. But there are so many still more challenges that we have to tackle together. But I don't want to be a doom gloom, because at the same time there are plenty of opportunities as well. So I believe that as the Philippines launches into its 2026 ASEAN year, and Australia and the Philippines celebrate our 80th anniversary of our deep and meaningful relationship, I am convinced that our two countries will be even closer together, working together to stand up for the rules-based order and to work hard for our people so we can create a better future for all our citizens, where we can ensure that there is peace, stability, and prosperity for all. So thank you so much for being here today. And with that, maraming salamat po, mabuhay to our relationship.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your insightful presentation and for providing a comprehensive overview of the current and aspirational future of Philippine-Australian relations. We are now opening the floor for questions and comments for today's topic. For your questions, kindly proceed to the center microphone and introduce yourself with your name and affiliation before asking your question, to ensure to accommodate as many as possible with a very informative lecture from Her Excellency. I'm sure many of you have questions and clarifications, but we're just going to limit it to one question per person. So the floor is open. We're ready for the first question, please. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, good morning, Ambassador. I'm Carla from the Foreign Service Institute. Thank you so much for the very interesting and enlightening presentation. I just have two questions, but we'll make it into one. What is Australia's role or vision of its role in the region? And is there a wide consensus among Australians of such a vision? Thank you so much.
So your question was, what is Australia's role in the region? Yes. Vision of its role. Thank you. Well, Australia's vision for its role is to work with our neighbours, partners, and friends to ensure that our region is peaceful, stable, and prosperous, as I said a number of times. And is there a consensus amongst the Australians of this vision? I would say yes, absolutely. This is an issue that is almost bipartisan, in Australia. And there is a strong sense by Australians that we live in Asia. So when we look up, we see Southeast Asia. And when we look around, we have our Pacific Island country friends. And so our vision is to really work with our friends and partners in the region to ensure that the rules-based order that served us so well for many, many decades actually continue, and that we can all live in peace, stability, and prosperity.
We're ready for the second question. Anyone?
Hello, good morning, Ambassador. I'm Shara Divina Gracia from the Foreign Service Institute. My question is, given their exposure to national disaster, how do Philippines and Australia collaborate on disaster risk reduction and emergency response? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. That's obviously a very timely question because as we speak, Australia is experiencing yet another flooding in our north middle part of New South Wales. So this is something that both our countries are experiencing more regularly, unlike what's actually happened in the past. And this is why we are so focused on working with the Philippines to make the Philippines disaster resilient, but also by doing so, learning from the Philippines what Australia can do better as well. So I was making reference to our development program called SHIELD, where what we are doing is multiple. So it's kind of about a number of approaches to it. First thing we are doing is pre-positioning stock and food and things that people need at times of crisis to those areas, so that when a natural disaster hit, we can move very quickly to deliver what's needed to those communities in the Philippines. So it's all about preparing, knowing that there will be disasters, sadly, and having comfort that we can mobilize them as soon as the disasters hit. But the more important element of our work is around prevention and working with the Philippine communities and government to come up with programs and policies that will help the communities prevent from being harmed by those natural disasters. One example is I went to Agusan del Norte to look at some of the flood-affected cornfields. This was a small town, small barangay, where they decided to put all their land and things together to achieve that economies of scale with corn, and it was going well. It was going well. But sadly, the rivers, overflowing rivers, hit, and the flooding, they were affected by floods for 3 months. The water didn't recede for 3 months. And the whole community was now faced with this new future where this flooding, which used to happen once every 10 years, might actually happen more regularly. So engaging with communities like that about what it means to relocate to higher grounds, what it means to build houses that are on stilts so that the flood water won't affect, housing. It's practical things like that that we are also working on. Building houses, we have also funded building houses where half of it was actually made with concrete roof, with very basic facility inside. So when that typhoon or flooding hits, families didn't have to evacuate to local schools and be all interrupted, but had one part of their house where they could be safe, right? Even if the other half got blown away, they could be safe in that part, thereby allowing them to recover quickly, both economically and otherwise. So these are some of the things that we are doing with the Philippines to help with your disaster response, but more importantly, prevention as well.
In the interest of time, we only have time for one more question. Maybe, sir, at the back.
Hello, my name is Paige. I'm a student intern assigned at the FSI. I think my question has already been answered in part. We are really grateful for everything that Australia does for the Philippines. However, partnerships go both ways. So I would like to know, in order to, of course, to also maintain this partnership, this healthy partnership, how would the Philippines be able to return the kindness of Australia in the future and currently?
Thank you for that question. There's many ways the Philippines is already returning the kindness, can I just say. A couple of things. First and foremost, having a strong and resilient Philippines is absolutely in Australia's interest. So we need the Philippines to continue to be strong, resilient, and the protector of the rules-based order in our region. The second thing that the Philippines already does is through very healthy two-way trade and investment. I think you may have missed it, but in the video, I actually talked about how ASEAN is Australia's largest foreign investor into the renewable energy sector. That's a significant investment made by a Philippine company. The ICTSI is also the operator of the most sophisticated and advanced port facility in Melbourne. So these are examples of how you are already providing huge investment and thus jobs and opportunities for Australia in return. So, I'd encourage that. And I think also the Philippine students and families choosing Australia as their preferred destination for study and leisure. These are all the things that's going to make both our countries stronger and more prosperous. So I thank my Philippine colleagues and friends who are already big fans of Australia, and I would love to see that wonderful friendship and relationship continuing.
Thank you very much. Ma'am?
I'm sure you're sick of hearing from me by now. I've just realized perhaps my speech was a little bit longer than everyone expected, so I apologize for cutting your Q&A time. But if you do have questions, I think there's actually morning tea afterwards, and I'd love to receive your questions and have the opportunity to answer them as well. Really, just once again, thank you. At a personal level, my lifelong dream was to become an ambassador. And the Philippines is the country that enabled me, allowed me to achieve that dream. And I also wanted to share with you that when it came to time for me to apply for a role as an ambassador, the Philippines was the only country I wanted and I put down. So in so many ways, my time here for the last 3 years has been my dream come true. And it has been made even more special by all of you, by the Filipino people. Because what I didn't expect was how similar Filipinos are to Australians when it came to our values, our relaxed and friendly and warm, welcoming personalities. And I have been so privileged and so lucky to have received so much of your warm hospitality and your friendship. So my time here has been not only just about amazing country-to-country achievements, but also a deeply, personally gratifying experience. So I thank you all, and the world is a small place, so I know that there will be many Filipino friends that I will remain in contact with even beyond my current posting. So I won't say goodbye, I'll say see you later. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that today's lecture and conversations have sparked new learnings for everyone. Now, the Foreign Service Institute would like to express its sincerest appreciation to Her Excellency for her presence and her wonderful insights on our country's relations. May I please invite the Foreign Service Institute Director General Francisco Noel R. Fernandez III to award our simple token of appreciation, one of FSI's publications, Dakilang Lagunense, the Art and Artists of Laguna, and the Certificate of Appreciation. All right, that concludes our lecture for today. We wish to invite everyone to some refreshments next door, the door to, or the room to your left, which is 1C. Kindly join us, and if you have many other questions or clarifications, I'm sure Her Excellency will be very happy to indulge you and answer your clarifications. Before we leave, a few quick announcements. We are committed to continuous improvement, and we value your feedback, so please kindly scan the QR code at the back of the program brochure to share your thoughts on today's session and complete our client satisfaction survey. We also have another Ambassadors Lecture Series, which is scheduled next month. The 14th Ambassadors Lecture Series, the lecture on Blue Nations, Finance in the Philippines, Partners for the Oceans, the reinforcement of our bilateral cooperation. It will be delivered by the Ambassador of the Republic of France to the Philippines, Her Excellency Marie Fontanelle Lassalle, on 27 June 2025, Friday, at DFA meeting rooms 2A to 2C. So that will be located on the second floor next month. And to our dear guests, we look forward to having you again to our next Ambassadors Lecture Series. And that will be all for today. Thank you very much for attending our Ambassadors Lecture Series. Maraming salamat at see you po next time.